So Miura don't launch new heads very often, and we have the TC202, the latest in the line of products that they've had over the last 57, 60 years, and progression on previous products. But in this video, we're going to take you through the features of this head, the design principles and changes of previous models. Going to hit a few as well, tell you how they feel, and just basically give you a bit of a background and a first look at the new product and what you can expect from it. So TC201 to 202, previous model to essentially the next iteration of. And there are some quite significant changes in the weight positioning in the head, and therefore what the characteristics you can expect from each model. So looking back at the 201, we've got a little bit of a central bar here, but then a predominant weighting heel and toe. And that mass shifts up and down the head a little bit, but not a huge amount. Carry that over to the 202, we can see, well, both heads have these notches, heel and toe, and that's about taking weight out of those positions and putting them in a more optimal place in the head. So you can save, it doesn't look much, but you can certainly save a few grams there, and a few grams will make a difference. But as we can see between the two here, there's much more of a focus of weight in the bottom of the head, so moving CG down, but a complete repositioning of the mass and structure of that mass positioning through the center of the head. What does that really mean? So I put that down to one side, get the other two heads. So this is really about center mass weight distribution. So it's making sure that there isn't any extra weight in the periphery of the head where you don't need it. The TC202, it's still a kind of what we call muscle cavity. The 201 to the 202, and this actually goes back inspiration, that center mass positioning, inspiration from the CB57, of which there's a shot that'll come into view now, where very classically kind of cavity back head, but with a bar in the center, so positioning the mass behind the contact point, giving you a really solid feel. But what you can see from the progression of weight here is, as we go from the 5-iron to the 8-iron to the gap wedge, that mass moves kind of higher and higher up the face. So what does that mean from a performance point of view? Well, low CG, lower mass on the 5-iron, gets the weight down, launches it higher, gives it more forgiveness, moving up a little bit more into the 8-iron head, so moving that CG up a little bit, optimizing trajectory, giving a bit more solid feel, a little bit more flight control and spin control, and then moving it higher up into the center of the head, into the gap wedge. At the bottom end of the heads, these go from 3-iron through pitch wedge and gap wedge. So moving it up the head, you've got less of a mass at the bottom, so it's pushing that weight up to give a slightly stronger launch profile, a little bit more of a solid feel, and again, optimizing spin profile and therefore flight control. So these heads are really about a bit of margin for error, but maximizing flight control throughout the set. So the next area of progression on the head design is the sole. Now, the sole profile has taken inspiration from the Y grind wedges, so the Yoshitaka Miura grind. And what that is on the Y grind wedge, there's a more rounded, kind of killed off, beveled off leading edge, which helps stop the leading edge dig, but helps it to move through the turf, as well as a back edge grind to make it exit the turf as cleanly as possible. And this has been incorporated more on this head than on previous models. So the previous Miura heads have had, as this one, that little bit of a beveled leading edge as well, but it's not quite as aggressive. So what that means is that in various turf conditions, this particularly softer ones, this is going to just glide through the turf a little bit more easily and ultimately optimize turf interaction, which means more consistent strike, more consistent divot depth, but also a little bit of a better energy transfer through to the ball because the club head's not getting caught up in the turf. So a smoother interaction with the turf, a more wedge-inspired sole shape, and that carries all the way through slightly different bounce progressions, so a little more bounce on the shorter irons than the longer irons, again to help ball flight control, but also that turf interaction, getting the best, most consistent strike possible. And we'll then move on to just a little bit about the variable depth weighting on the back of the head and go into that detail now. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the variable depth cavity of this set and how that progresses through. And we're going to hit a couple of shots with each one and describe that progression in feel as well. So essentially that progression in weight through the set gives you optimized mass positioning, feel, flight control, optimized for each head through the set. So it isn't just a kind of one-size-fits-all bit of technology and weight positioning. It's progressed through the set, as many brands are doing now. But you'll see from this the particularly unique shaping of that weighting, and that's about partly mass positioning, but also slightly strengthening. You know, there is an element of structural reinforcement to that as well, and the angle based on strike patterns in terms of reinforcing a little higher out the toe, because that's the weakest spot on the head. So that's why that shaping is that way. Is functional. It isn't just a visual design element that looks quite nice. It does have a functional element to it as well, which is something that, you know, Miura as a brand have always done. Every head is designed for a function in mind. The shaping of a mass in the back of the head isn't just to look pretty. It really does something. So how do they progress through the set? So in the longer irons, we've got a lower CG, a wider flange at the bottom there, more weight positioned low, and that just sits that little bit lower down the head to ensure the mass gets to the bottom of the ball, flights it up a little bit more, and gives that little bit more perimeter weighting and forgiveness through that head as well. Again, it's the longest iron, it's hitting the furthest, need the most margin of error. As you move into the middle part of the set, kind of the 6 and the 7 in particular, you know, that mass and the 8 here, that mass starts to move further up the head. So part of that is a little bit more of a solid sound and feel. It moves the CG up the head a little bit more, so again, solidifies the contact, but helps just to drop that launch angle just a little bit, bring that launch angle down, control the spin a little bit more, whereas we're looking to get it ball up and away in the long iron, we're looking to control that flight down a little bit more into the midsection, and, you know, produces a bit more of a solid feel. And then into the shorter irons, it goes higher up the head. This is it doesn't look as different, but it's a slightly thicker bar at the bottom there, moving the mass up the head. So higher CG gives lower launch and retains a little bit more spin, so it gives the player the maximum control over the ball flight possible. Again, the most solid feel. We've got the thinnest flange at the bottom edge here, so we've got the least weight low on the head, most weight high on the head, giving maximum feel, maximum stability, maximum solidity to it as well, but maximum control there too. So going to hit a couple with each head. Just describe the feel of them, because they will feel slightly different as a result of that mass distribution change, and we'll describe that as well as look at some of the numbers too briefly. So we're going to start off with the gap wedge, which is actually quite neat in the crutch area of the head. We'll show a visual at address of each of the heads as well, but, you know, classic Miura shape here, a little bit of peaked top edge there. So really with the weighting on this, should feel the most solid of all of them. So certainly get a little bit of that sensation of, you don't feel like the weight's cutting under the ball and flaring it up. Actually, in terms of, you know, a more solid feel than I maybe thought when I play blades all the way through to pitch wedge. And the design principle of this is to get it feeling as blade-like as possible. So for some of those partial swings in particular, playing a knockdown shot like that, a quieter shot, there's that real kind of soft, buttery feel you expect from a Miura head, but they always feel like there's something on the back of the ball, and I think that's where, when you move too weight low on the head, you lose some of that sensation. So for a player looking for a head that's really pretty much as playable as a blade, but still gives you that kind of solidity and a bit of margin of error, you know, you're not losing any of that feel of control. You know, yes, maybe marginally, you can feel there's marginally more weight at the bottom of the head than a pure blade, but there's still that real feeling of guts at strike, and that sensation of being able to control the ball flight. Sometimes you get heads with lots of weight at the bottom that just feel like the ball's going to pop up in the sky and kick up in the air. Whereas this head, you know, for this sort of profile, you know, keeping the launch at 26, that's quite a nice sort of launch. We're always looking for roughly half the loft, and the loft on this is 50 degrees. So actually really quite pleased with that flight profile, and really nice, solid, clean sort of sound and feel off that head. So we'll move up to the 8 iron. So 8 iron, that weight progresses down a little bit more. Obviously the shape of the head becomes some more what you're used to seeing. I think when you go into the pitch wedge and gap wedges, you tend to get a bit of a higher toe end to it, so the head looks slightly squared off on the top edge. But the transition, the 8 iron's always sort of classed the gateway to the set from a visual point of view, and the neatness in the crutch and the heel side here, it's a really beautiful looking head. They've done a great job with the cleanliness and the simplicity of the head, and yeah, I say it's just, I like the lack of offset. Some heads have a little bit more offset too, and this one just sits really beautifully behind the ball, which we'll do a close-up of the address position as well. Again, back to that same solid feel. It's something that Miura talk about in their marketing and their profile of this head that they're looking to keep. So having played a Miura blade for 18, 19 years, it's a very, very similar feel. You don't get that clicky harshness that you do off other products because there isn't anything extraneous. There's no tungsten, titanium. This is just a single metal. There's nothing else added into it. So you get, with Miura, you get that really lovely traditional feel from the face. But a head that feels really stable through impact. It really stays with the contact. And you can feel a little bit more stability. So I play a blade, you can definitely feel this head gives you a little bit more back, but we're not losing any of that solidity to the strike. And I felt sometimes with the previous models, you know, the TC201s, they had lots of weight, heel and toe, but you maybe just lost a little bit of that guts in the middle of the head, and this regains that back. Again, move up to the 5-iron. The neatness, the progression of the head shape through the set, very, very smooth and very consistent lines through. The offset flows really nice. It's a soft progression through, so there's a natural flow to the offset, of which there isn't a lot. Miuras don't have a lot, but the head shape really, again, it sounds odd to say progresses well, but some heads you get a bit of a jar at one point at the bottom end of the set where it just looks really quite different. You know, the line through the hosel into the top of the head maintains beautifully through the set. And then going up to the 5-iron, this is where we've got the maximum weight moved away from the center and down the bottom of the head. You get a very smooth progression in that stability. It's not like you suddenly get to a different feeling head. You know, this is very noticeably just a soft progression through the set and get plenty of margin of error out of that. But again, you don't lose that soft feel. So you know, it's something that a top quality forging will always give you a lack of sort of harshness and vibration through the head, unless you thin one, of course. But it's a very smooth feel, which sounds a bit odd to say, but you don't get that tingling in your fingers when you kind of slightly miss it. It actually kind of dampens that down a little bit. But the balance of the head is something I think Miura always had, where the head always feels like it stays with the contact a little bit more stably, a little squarer. But to get a head with a little more forgiveness, but without losing the feel and the balance through impact. I think that's where this head, for anyone who's played some of the same Miura blades in the past, you really can gain that stability and off-center performance and consistency of flight and stability of flight without giving up, you know, the look, that minimal offset and that softer feel. And they've added in that interaction, that turf interaction with the leading edge grind. That's going to help as well, particularly in softer turf conditions. So from a look and a feel point of view, I think this is a real winner for Miura. It's something that I think we've been kind of waiting for a few years, but just a wonderful design, really pretty head, beautiful look out of the dress, and you know, something I think that will stay in the Miura line for a long time and be very, very successful. So for all you Miura fans out there, you know, really great addition to the lineup. We've got the demo heads in now, so if you want to book in, come and test them out and have a look at them, give us a call or email us, and we can get you booked in to test out these, compare against the other models in the line and see which one suits you best. So if you've liked this video, please like, subscribe, check out the most recent fitting video we've done as well. That'll give you an insight about how we go about the process, and you know, come in and have a look at the TC202's really, really wonderful iron.